In the heart of Harlem, an old jazz club stood as a silent sentinel to a bygone era. Its faded marquee and dusty windows belied the electric atmosphere within. This wasn't just any night spot. It was the nerve center of a movement poised to shake New York City to its core. The peeling wallpaper and scuffed floors masked a high-tech operation humming with purpose and urgency. At the center of this hidden command post sat Zora Johnson, a brilliant 28-year-old computer scientist. Her wild afro seemed to crackle with the same energy that flowed through her fingers as they danced across multiple keyboards. Zora's eyes darted between a wall of screens, each displaying streams of data that only she could fully comprehend. Lines of code reflected in her glasses, telling a story of impending conflict and carefully laid plans. Beside her stood Marcus Green, a former Army Ranger turned community organizer. At 35, his powerful frame and watchful eyes spoke of a man who had seen the worst of humanity but still believed in its potential for good. Scars on his knuckles told tales of battles fought, both on foreign soil and in the streets of his own neighborhood. Marcus leaned over Zora's shoulder, his brow furrowed as he translated the digital intelligence into tactical realities. The air in the room was thick with tension, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of keys and the low hum of powerful computers. This unlikely pair, the tech genius and the battle-hardened soldier, formed the backbone of a resistance that had been months in the making. Their goal, to expose the corruption that had rotted the heart of their beloved city and to reclaim Harlem's future from those who sought to exploit it. Suddenly, the heavy door to their command center burst open, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the room. Amara Okike rushed in, her braids flying behind her like a cape. At 22, she was the youngest of the group, a street artist whose vibrant murals had become symbols of hope and defiance across Harlem. Paint stains on her fingers and the smell of spray cans clung to her clothes, signs of her most recent act of artistic rebellion. Amara's entrance brought with it a wave of nervous energy. Her breathless report sent a jolt of urgency through the room, electrifying the already charged atmosphere. Their leader, Malik Robinson, was in danger. The words hung in the air like a thundercloud, heavy with the promise of an imminent storm. Malik, a 45-year-old history teacher turned revolutionary, was more than just their leader. He was the heart and soul of their movement. His passionate speeches about justice and equality had ignited a fire in the community, drawing people from all walks of life to their cause. If he fell into enemy hands, the carefully constructed network of resistance could unravel, and with it, the hopes and dreams of countless Harlem residents. Marcus sprang into action, his movements precise and purposeful. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, reaching a locked cabinet that blended seamlessly into the wall. With practiced ease, he input a complex code, revealing a cache of high-tech equipment. From this arsenal, Marcus retrieved a small black case, its contents unknown but clearly of vital importance. He pressed the case into Amara's hands, his voice low and urgent as he gave her instructions. The young artist's eyes widened, understanding the weight of the responsibility being placed on her shoulders. With a nod that belied her years, Amara clutched the case to her chest and dashed out, her footsteps fading as she raced to her assigned position. As the door swung shut behind Amara, Marcus and Zora exchanged grim looks. The air between them crackled with unspoken understanding. They had minutes, maybe less, before their enemies closed in. Years of planning, countless nights of preparation, and the hopes of an entire community now hinged on the next few hours. Across town, in a world that couldn't have been more different from the gritty streets of Harlem, another drama was unfolding. The Ebony Tower rose like a monolith of glass and steel, its upper floors lost in the low-hanging clouds. This architectural marvel was more than just a building. It was a symbol of power, a fortress of capitalism that cast a long shadow over the city. In the opulent penthouse suite, Darius King stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, surveying the city he considered his personal kingdom. At 60, the real estate mogul cut an imposing figure. His tailored suit, worth more than most people made in a year, draped perfectly over his frame. Every silver hair was meticulously in place, his manicured hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the glittering cityscape. Darius's smooth demeanor and charming smile had graced countless magazine covers and charity galas. But those who knew him best understood that beneath the polished exterior lay a ruthlessness that had crushed countless opponents. He was the true power behind the city's corrupt government, his influence reaching into every corner of New York's political and economic life. The silence of the penthouse was broken by the arrival of Jamal Thompson, Darius's head of security. At 40, Jamal was built like a linebacker, his muscular frame barely contained by his expensive suit. Scars on his face and calloused hands spoke of a man who had clawed his way up from the streets, earning his position through a combination of loyalty and brutal efficiency. Jamal's report was delivered in clipped professional tones, but the news it contained sent a ripple of excitement through the room. Malik Robinson was on the move, exposed and vulnerable. Moreover, unusual activity had been detected near the suspected base of the resistance. A predatory smile crossed Darius's face as he processed this information, seeing in it the opportunity he had been waiting for. With the smooth confidence of a man accustomed to being obeyed, Darius issued his orders. His voice, cultured and controlled, belied the violent intent behind his words. The endgame was finally at hand, and Darius King intended to crush this insurrection once and for all. As Jamal nodded and strode out, purpose in every step, Darius turned back to the window. The city lights twinkled below, oblivious to the power plays unfolding in the tower above. "Time to end this little game," Darius murmured to himself, his reflection in the glass overlaying the city he sought to control. Meanwhile, on the rain-slicked streets of Harlem, Malik Robinson was a man on the run. The historian-turned-revolutionary ducked from shadow to shadow, his every movement a calculated risk. The flash drive clutched in his hand felt like it weighed a ton, its contents a digital powder keg that could blow Darius King's empire sky-high. Malik's breath came in short gasps, his legs burning with the effort of his flight. The wail of sirens in the distance was a constant reminder of the danger at his heels, each passing moment bringing his pursuers closer. As he made his final push towards what he hoped was safety, Malik was unaware of the eyes watching from above. High on a rooftop, buffeted by gusts of wind that threatened to unbalance her, Amara crouched near the edge of a building. Her high-tech binoculars, a stark contrast to her paint-stained fingers, were trained on the streets below. Through them, she tracked Malik's progress, her heart pounding in time with his desperate flight. In her ear, Zora's voice crackled with updates, painting a picture of a closing net. Amara's hand hovered over the device Marcus had entrusted to her, a last-ditch failsafe that could plunge half of Harlem into darkness. The weight of this responsibility pressed down on her, heavier than any burden she had ever borne. As the night deepened, so too did the tension on the streets below. The fate of a movement, and perhaps the entire city, hung in the balance. A teacher-turned-revolutionary raced against time, carrying with him the hopes of a community. A brilliant hacker coordinated a desperate escape from her hidden command center, her fingers flying over keys as she tried to stay one step ahead of their opponents. And a young artist stood ready to light the spark that could ignite a revolution or condemn them all to failure. The city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see which way the scales of fate would tip. Suddenly, like a bolt from the blue, the script flipped. From the shadows emerged Keisha Foster, a local shopkeeper known to be sympathetic to their cause. Her appearance was like a lifeline to the desperate Malik, a familiar face in a sea of danger. With urgent whispers and furtive glances, Keisha pulled Malik into a hidden entrance, promising a safe passage through forgotten tunnel systems beneath the city. Hope surged through Malik as he followed Keisha into the darkness. The dank, musty air of the tunnels filled his lungs as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. Water dripped from unseen sources, and the distant rumble of subway trains vibrated through the walls. For a moment, it seemed as though salvation was at hand. But fate had other plans. As they rounded a corner, harsh light suddenly flooded the tunnel. Malik found himself face to face with Jamal Thompson and a squad of armed guards. The trap had been sprung with ruthless efficiency. Keisha's anguished apology, they had her daughter, did little to soften the blow of betrayal. As handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Malik's mind raced. How had it all gone so wrong? And what would become of the movement, of the community he had sworn to protect? Back at the command center, a different kind of chaos was erupting. Zora's fingers flew across her keyboard, her face a mask of concentration broken by growing horror. A breach in their system had been detected, not just any breach, but a catastrophic failure of their security. Someone was downloading everything, their plans, their identities, the entire infrastructure of the resistance. The betrayal cut deep, knowing it came from within their own ranks. Marcus and Zora scrambled to salvage what they could, to protect the operatives and allies whose lives now hung in the balance. The sense of violation was palpable. Years of careful planning and sacrifices potentially undone in a matter of minutes. Above ground, Amara's world tilted on its axis. Her binoculars swept the streets, searching in vain for any sign of Malik. The radio silence from her comrades only added to her growing panic. As confusion reigned, a new shockwave rippled through Harlem. The blackout device activated, but not by her hand. In an instant, half of Harlem plunged into darkness. Streetlights winked out, buildings became looming shadows, and the usual urban cacophony was replaced by a chorus of car alarms and confused shouts. Amara's heart raced as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. Their failsafe, their last line of defense, had been turned against them. In the ensuing chaos, Marcus and Zora made the heart-wrenching decision to abandon their headquarters. Grabbing only the most essential equipment, they initiated emergency protocols designed to wipe their systems and leave no trace behind. As they prepared to step into the unknown, a cryptic text message flashed on Marcus's phone. A warning of Malik's capture and directions to a rendezvous point. With no time to verify its authenticity and danger closing in from all sides, they took the risk. Sometimes, Marcus knew, you had to leap without looking and trust in the net to appear. The streets of Harlem had transformed into a maze of shadows and uncertainty. Marcus, Zora, and Amara reunited amidst the chaos, their reunion bittersweet in the face of their leader's capture and their mission's apparent failure. But there was no time for recriminations or despair. The sound of screeching tires announced new danger, a black SUV bearing down on them with deadly intent. What followed was a desperate flight through the darkened city. The trio ducked through alleys, vaulted fences, and used every trick in their arsenal to evade their pursuers. Their intimate knowledge of Harlem's layout became their greatest asset, allowing them to stay just steps ahead of capture. Just when it seemed their luck had run out, an unexpected savior appeared. Keisha Foster, the very woman who had betrayed Malik, now offered them a hidden escape route. Her eyes were filled with tears, and her voice shook with emotion as she pleaded for a chance to make things right. Suspicion warred with desperation as the revolutionaries weighed their options. The approaching danger, signaled by the growing wail of sirens and the thud of helicopter rotors, made the decision for them. With a silent prayer and a shared look of determination, they followed Keisha into the unknown. As the hidden door closed behind them, Jamal Thompson and his team arrived at the scene. The alley stood empty, offering no clues to the fugitives' escape. Jamal's face twisted in frustration as he barked orders into his radio. The hunt would continue, but for now, the resistance had slipped through their fingers. In the Ebony Tower, the final act of this drama was unfolding. Darius King faced off against the captured Malik Robinson, two titans locked in a battle of wills. The revolutionaries' defiant silence was met with Darius's smooth, cultured tones. A chilling proposition was laid out. Sign a document renouncing the revolution in exchange for his life and promised benefits for his community. To drive home the stakes, Darius revealed his trump card. A wall-mounted screen flickered to life, showing a live feed of Malik's friends, Marcus, Zora, and Amara, being led into a room by Keisha. The message was clear. Their fates, and the fate of the entire movement, rested on Malik's decision. As dawn broke over Harlem, casting long shadows across streets, still recovering from the night's chaos, the fate of the revolution hung by a thread. In the Ebony Tower, Malik faced an impossible choice that would define not just his legacy, but the future of his community. In a hidden safe house somewhere in the city, his friends walked the tightrope between salvation and a carefully laid trap. Across Harlem, people emerged from their homes to find a world transformed. The night's events had shaken the very foundation of their community, leaving uncertainty and whispered rumors in its wake. The air was thick with tension, everyone sensing that something momentous was unfolding, even if they didn't know the details. The battle for Harlem's soul had reached its crucial moment. The pieces were in place, the players poised for the final gambit. By nightfall, nothing would be the same. The revolution, born in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a better future, now stood at a crossroads. Would it crumble under the weight of betrayal and overwhelming odds? Or would it rise, phoenix-like, from the ashes of adversity to challenge the corrupt powers that be? As the sun climbed higher, casting its unforgiving light on a city poised on the brink of change, one thing was certain. The next few hours would determine the course of countless lives. In precarious hideouts, in opulent towers, and on the streets of Harlem, the players in this high-stakes drama steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. Each knew that their next move could tip the scales between victory and defeat, between justice and corruption, between revolution and oppression,